Here are YouTube animators whose stories reflect the 7 heavenly virtues, not always through public charity drives or grand announcements, but through the inspiration they sparked, the lessons they taught, and the quiet ways their journeys changed how millions of people see creativity, failure, and growth. Because sometimes virtue isn't something you declare, it's something people learn by watching you live your life on screen, and one of the clearest examples of that kind of impact comes from the Odd Ones Out, whose humility has never come from pretending to be small, but from openly showing his worst moments at full scale. As James Rallison built one of the largest animation channels on YouTube by turning embarrassing memories, awkward social encounters, and personal insecurities into relatable stories that made viewers feel less alone, and despite reaching tens of millions of subscribers, releasing books, launching games, and even creating a Netflix animated series, James has consistently framed his success as a byproduct of starting badly and refusing to quit, often keeping his earliest, roughest videos online as proof that improvement is a process, not a talent you're born with, a message that has quietly encouraged countless young artists to post their first drawings, animations, and ideas without waiting to be perfect. And while that humility shows up as humor on the surface, its real-world effect is visible in how often creators cite the Odd Ones Out as the reason they believed they were allowed to improve publicly, instead of hiding until they were good enough. But humility is only one form of virtue, and inspiration can also come from vulnerability, something Tim Tom Animations has built his entire storytelling style around, as Tim Tom emerged in the animation space not by exaggerating life for laughs, but by calmly reflecting on personal struggles, discipline, habits, and mindset, turning animated storytelling into something closer to a quiet conversation than a performance. And instead of positioning himself as an expert, Tim Tom often frames his videos as lessons learned the hard way, sharing how small daily decisions, consistency, and self-awareness shaped his progress over time, which resonated deeply with students and young adults who were overwhelmed by pressure, comparison, and uncertainty, with many viewers openly crediting his videos for helping them rethink procrastination, motivation, and long-term goals, showing that the virtue reflected in his work isn't something flashy like fame or dominance, but patience and wisdom passed forward through lived experience. And that same idea of influence through example rather than authority is also present in the journey of a cookie god, whose story reflects diligence and perseverance more than spectacle. As he steadily built respect within the animation and gaming crossover space by focusing on improvement, consistency, and skill development rather than viral shortcuts, showing audiences that growth often happens invisibly long before it shows up publicly. And while his name may not dominate mainstream conversations, the creators who followed his path often point to his work ethic as proof that sticking with a craft matters more than chasing trends, reinforcing a lesson that's easy to forget in algorithm-driven spaces. That sustained effort compounds quietly, and not every virtue shows itself through a single creator either. Because sometimes inspiration comes from scale and accessibility, which is where MSA Stories enters the conversation as an unexpected but undeniable influence, as the channel transformed animated storytelling into a massive entry point for younger audiences to engage with moral dilemmas, consequences, and personal choices, often through dramatic scenarios that spark discussion and emotional response. And while critics may debate style or exaggeration, the real-world impact is clear in how many viewers credit MSA Stories as their introduction to animated narratives that go beyond jokes and into lessons about empathy, decision-making, and accountability, proving that virtue can exist in reach itself, in the ability to plant ideas in millions of minds who might never pick up those lessons elsewhere. But perhaps the most widely recognized example of inspiration translating into action comes from Jaden Animations, whose career has become a reference point for authenticity in a high-pressure creative industry, as Jaden's rise from simple storytime animations about school life, anxiety, and personal fears into one of the most influential animators on the platform didn't happen through manufactured perfection, but through honesty about burnout, doubt, and the emotional cost of creating online. And by openly discussing those realities, she helped normalize conversations that many creators felt forced to hide, particularly around mental health and creative sustainability. And beyond storytelling alone, Jaden has also demonstrated how influence can turn into tangible impact, using her platform to support causes she believes in and encouraging others to pursue art despite industry uncertainty, inspiring a generation of artists who saw in her not just success, but permission to be human while chasing it. And when you step back and look at these creators together, what becomes clear is that the heavenly virtues don't always appear as labels or titles, but as patterns: humility in leaving your mistakes visible, patience in choosing consistency over shortcuts, diligence in improving quietly, wisdom in sharing lessons instead of lectures, and inspiration in reaching people where they already are. And this is only the beginning of how these animated stories extend far beyond the screen, shaping real decisions, real confidence, and real creative paths for millions watching around the world. And while the previous animators demonstrate how inspiration, humility, patience, and diligence translate into real-world impact, the journey of these creators also shows that learning from mistakes, embracing awkwardness, and sharing personal stories openly can leave lasting impressions. Because viewers don't just watch animations, they internalize the lessons, the mindset, and the courage it takes to keep creating, which is why channels like The Odd Ones Out, Tim Tom Animations, A Cookie God, MSA Stories, and Jaden Animations resonate so profoundly, as each has contributed a unique blueprint for what it means to be a creator in the digital age, blending entertainment with tangible life lessons, whether it's through James Rallison laughing at himself so fans can laugh and learn alongside him, Tim Tom modeling quiet reflection and thoughtful problem solving, A Cookie God emphasizing steady growth and perseverance over flashy trends, MSA Stories turning imaginative scenarios into moral explorations, or Jaden Animations showing that being authentic, vulnerable, and intentional can inspire millions to pursue art and self-expression without fear, and collectively they demonstrate that the real virtue of animation lies not just in skill or numbers, but in the human connection that emerges when creators open themselves up to their audience, making failure, struggle, and growth part of the narrative, which teaches viewers that their own journeys are valid and meaningful, that mistakes are part of the process, and that improvement, creativity, and self-expression are achievable for anyone willing to start, regardless of background, resources, or initial skill level. And this is exactly why so many young animators, aspiring storytellers, and casual viewers credit these creators with shaping their approach to work, school, and life in subtle but powerful ways. Because these animations don't just entertain, they mentor, guide, and inspire, showing that creativity paired with honesty, humility, and consistency has the power to transform how people see themselves and the world around them. And if there's a single lesson to take from all of this, it's that the stories behind the screen often matter just as much as the animations on it, that the choices creators make about what to show, how to show it, and the courage to remain authentic can ripple far beyond the confines of YouTube into careers, personal growth, and everyday life decisions. And now it's your turn to experience this impact firsthand, to witness how a simple story, a doodle, or a stick figure animation can spark inspiration, laughter, and motivation in ways you never expected. Because every subscriber, every view, and every share becomes part of a larger journey of creativity and influence, and that's exactly why we want you to be part of this first adventure. So if you've ever felt curious, inspired, or just plain entertained by animated storytelling, hit that subscribe button now, join us on this journey, and make sure you never miss a moment where life lessons meet creativity in action, because the first video is only the beginning, the start of discovering how much you can learn, feel, and grow through the stories these amazing animators have created, and together we can celebrate their influence, carry it forward, and even find ways to inspire others in our own lives. So subscribe now, buckle up, and get ready for a journey where every animation teaches more than just a story. It teaches how to live, create, and thrive. Adios!